This video series is for those who are just starting out with microcontroller programming and building your own circuits. We're going to focus on the Raspberry Pi Pico and Mircopython. And this video is just going to get you started on how to get that up and running on the Pico and get your first program going. In later videos, we're going to be using this kit. I'm going to link to it in the video description, but it's got a lot of the basic components that's going to be easy to get up and running and get you really familiar with how to build your own circuits. So I highly recommend picking it up. Now when it comes to Picos, there's two different kinds. The newest one is the one with Wi-Fi, the Pico W, and the old version, the Pico H, which doesn't have Wi-Fi. Now you can get ones that have header pins already installed, which you can use in breadboards, which we'll be using in other videos. There's pretty much one step that we're going to need to do to get Mircopython running on our Pico, and that's going to be installing Thonny IDE. So we're going to type in Thonny into whatever search browser you have, and we're going to download it for whatever platform you got. I would go with the recommended install package they've highlighted here and let it download and just open it up. I'm going to install it for all users, but you don't need to. The install process is pretty easy. You just pretty much could click right through. Now we're going to be using Thonny to not only install Mircopython onto the Raspberry Pi Pico, but we'll also be using it as our code editor and how we're going to be running software on our Pico at first. Thonny's not a very big program, so it's only going to take a couple minutes to install. Unlike programming with C on the Raspberry Pi Pico, using Thonny, everything is installed and ran within the program. So you don't need to install any other SDKs or any other libraries to get things running. So as you can see here, Thonny's done, and we're just going to type it into our search menu and we could run it. Now the first thing we're going to do with it is we're going to install Mircopython onto our Pico, and we do that by plugging in our Pico, but when we do it we want to press down the push button on the top of the board while we plug it into our computer. What this does is put the Raspberry Pi Pico into programming mode, and it should launch this folder onto your computer screen. We're going to close this down, but this is the mode that will allow us to install Mircopython. So we're going to click the bottom corner here, and then you can install Mircopython. Now you can see it's already targeted the folder that popped up, and you just got to pick what the type of Pico that you have. That was a Pico H because it doesn't have Wi-Fi, so we're going to select that, and we're just going to click install, which will install the latest version of Mircopython. So now that it's finished, we're going to close this down. And if it doesn't pop up in the serial console here, just click in the right corner and just make sure you've got the right COM selected, because you should get this screen just notifying that your Pico is running Mircopython and what version. So now the Pico is waiting for us to give it some code to run. So this won't make too much sense to you, but I'll start off by importing some libraries. The first one being machine and the function pin, and then the library time. Then we're going to set up a variable called LED, and we're going to set it to pin 25 and set it as a digital out. Then the next line we're going to turn the LED off by setting the value to 0. Right after that, we're going to set up a unconditional loop. Everything after the while true statement, it will run on a continuous loop. And we're going to start that loop off with turning the LED on with LED value to 1. Then we're going to tell it to sleep for half a second. Then we're going to turn the LED off. And then once we do that, we're going to tell it to sleep again for half a second. Now we got a piece of code that will flash the LED on board on and off. Click the little green button and we're going to check out the Pico, and you can see it turns the LED on and off. Everything's fine and dandy unless you got a Pico W. This will not run. That's because the LED is also tied to the Wi-Fi module. So to get this code to run, we'll have to modify it a little bit, and instead of using pin 25, we're going to use pin LED. but we got to put two brackets or two quotation marks around LED like this here, and that will run on a Pico W. So click stop, and if you got a Pico W, plug it in, and you can see here the Pico W has got the silver chip and the LED is blinking on and off. Now there's not too many examples of where code will work on one and not on the other unless you're directly using Wi-Fi, but I'll make sure of letting you know of that in future videos. I've also linked to a GitHub repo that I made just for this video series, which I named Pico 101, and you can see this is the first episode 001, and you can see if you click on this file here, that's the Blinky code that we just typed up. And if you wanted to download it yourself, you could just click here, download. Your computer's going to think it's a virus because it's a straight source code, but you know what's inside the file, so there you go. You can run it straight from Thonny, press play, and if you got your Pico running, there you go. So hopefully this has helped you out to get you started, and if you subscribe, you'll see a lot more videos on how to get you up and going for a beginner on a Raspberry Pi Pico and Mircopython.